The Joe Rogan Experience.
What we have to realize is that we're Americans. You know, we're deeply selfish monsters that have been bred to destroy all life on Earth. We have to not lose sight of that message. We're here to fuck things up for everyone else, not each other. And that's what we had in the 80s and the 90s. We had a commitment to apathy while our leaders ran around pillaging the earth. And we made great movies and great art, and it was fine.
All right.
Yes, people got killed.
You man the helm for a second.
People always get killed.
I gotta make a phone call.
But now we're at war with each other. We should just be enjoying the spoils of the end of the empire. Truly. You should be enjoying it. So many people got killed, murdered, tortured, and maimed for us to have all the nice things we have. Do you know how insane it is to not enjoy it? You know how crazy it is to not enjoy a McMansion, a flat screen TV, a McFlurry? You know how much blood is in the street for those things? And people act like they don't even matter. And they're fighting about all this bullshit. It's crazy. Anyway, that's the truth. That's the real truth. Nobody wants to hear it, but that is the truth. We have a lot of these things are nice, but some of them are ill-gotten gains. Fine, you know. Not everybody picking tomatoes is happy about it. But have you ever had a nice Jersey thick beefsteak tomato? It's good. Imagine having one and then fighting with someone about something. It's stupid. If there's a hell world going, and if there's not, we get reincarnated when we're Beatles or something. But just enjoy it, and nobody wants to enjoy it, and that's what makes me upset. Is that we used to have a country built on enjoyment, built on fat, stupid people enjoying the work of a small group of demons, and now we can't even enjoy it. Can't even have fun.
That would be the only way to get us out of this.
That's right.
If we ever realize that the problems that we have with issues are far smaller than the problems where the issues that we agree on. Like, everybody agrees we have to have less crime. Everybody agrees that we have to have more education.
We have to have
everybody
less crime.
agrees that we have to have safer streets and safer
more is that the crime doesn't come from anywhere.
The things that we disagree on,
turn down.
Well, people disagree on like how to make those things a reality, though. Yeah. How do you have less crime? Is it by letting
it's also
people out of jail?
Us being divided helps. It helps people who want to just continually operate in the system as it's constructed. And whether that is the system of perpetual war or the system of the banking sector, the dominance of the financial sector, or the system is tech companies set up to have these political relationships, how they're presently constituted, people who are thriving in this system and using it to their ends do not want it changed. And people hating each other helps them.
It definitely does. Do you think that that's just human nature?
Yes.
And you're just doing it while this is happening? Or do you think it's orchestrated? So this is the question, right? Is the dissent, and is some of it, we know it's manipulated by other countries.
Yes.
We know that China does it. We know that they have these huge Russian organizations that in their troll farms.
Yeah.
You know, we know that that's going on. The idea that we wouldn't do that to ourselves if we were trying to get people riled up about each other.
To an extent, is probably an inherent flaw in democracy, but I'm glad I lived in one, and I'm glad I lived in the time I did. But I do think, you know, a democracy kind of descends probably into an oligarchy eventually. The vast majority of the citizens go, I don't want the responsibility of citizenship. So a few really highly motivated psychopaths go, we'll handle it. We'll take it from here. And then those people are fighting over their own interests constantly.
Do you think it should be illegal to pretend to represent a human being when you're a corporation that is promoting your own needs? So do you think that, like, a corporation,
these words just don't even, like, it's like
whether it's a foreign corporation, let's say it's foreign,
not
so
sentences.
It's not connected to us.
It's like those games when you're like teaching kindergartners and every kid has to say a different word and together it tells a story.
A specific political issue that's going to be a hot button target. And
it's like a Siri talking to a fucking Android AI or whatever.
People.
Yes.
And go after people with dissenting opinions and quote tweet them and attack them, and you find out it's not even a real person.
Right.
that should be illegal.
That should be
seems to
this
me
thing
like
that does not matter. Objectively does not matter.
We'll
and that does not hurt
to allow
either of the people
anyone
talking.
with enough
should it
money.
be illegal?
But don't you think that
Chat, what do you think?
Right
do you think it should be illegal?
That's insidious. Like pretending you're a person for a specific propaganda game and having it like 1,000 accounts and you're running it through computers and you've got people that are responding to things. You got people that are just retweeting things and posting things, and it's all just propaganda.
It's insane that the Congress, the Congress members who went and started trading stocks based on the knowledge of how bad coronavirus was still have jobs, right? All of this is kind of insane. We're just at peak insanity here, and there's, I mean,
are we at the peak?
I don't know if we're at the peak, but it's.
I don't think that these guys know how to speak sentences. Like, I don't think the words connect. I think that they just have like a word association game. Because they're not saying any ideas that I can tell. Like they're just like reassociating between a few different things that they dislike. I guess the bot farm thing is interesting because gives a shit about that in 2022. I don't know that we live in some manipulated, like it sounds like now they like the Mueller report or something. I don't get it. I've been stoned before, but this is worse than any conversation I've had.
We're close to it. Like I do believe with the way things are going, and you're looking at some really crazy trends, and I don't know when they come to a conclusion, and if they do.
I'm glad that we know that he doesn't know when they'll come to a conclusion. Knowing that Tim Dillon is not clairvoyant actually bought off my mind.
Without something, a war or some violent or whatever. But like, it is just, we're living in a time now where we all know everything's fucked, but we're mostly powerless to change it. And that's when societies start to decay past a point, and everybody just kind of sits back and watches.
Society doesn't like decay organically or whatever. Like, people don't talk about decline in America because like people watch too much TV. They talk about decline in America because we make less stuff less well relative to other countries and relative to the challenges that we face. And so like the way they're talking about decay is just that like it's more uncomfortable for them to exist in society. That's it. That's their idea of the future.
Watches it like a show, and it just descends into eventually something that becomes more and more unmanageable. And then either a strongman dictator type comes in, or there's some massive war that resets things, or there's some natural disaster. But it feels like we're kind of at that point, That's why I'm glad we lived in the era that we lived. And we really should.
I mean, he's not, I agree that we're at a turning point, and evidently he's really happy that he got to be a sausage in the casing for the last 20 years. Hi, man.
You don't like Tim Dillon?
I can't take this conversation. It's like watching like two AI, like phone AIs talk to one another.
What's he saying? Is he talking? Is he advocating for rampant consumerism? Because I'm on board. I love that shit.
Well, I mean, he's doing the thing where it's just he's like, everything's really bad, everything's really dumb, and we can't even. It's like as if these things all kind of like exist in isolation. And it's like, well, that we don't make the good movies anymore because like there's it's connected to the part of the thing about how we don't make things anymore, period, and that those were choices meant to enrich people. And it's not just that. It's like, wow, things suck now, and I'm so upset about it. And then Joe Rogan asking, well, do you think maybe it should be illegal for corporations to pretend to be people online? And then he's like, well, China does it, and I mean Russia does it, and we don't do it. It's like literally two AIs.
I like that.
Should just be happy. We should be really happy. We should go. It's nice that we got the run we did because it's not getting better.
They're saying I fell off. You're their favorite streamer now.
Oh.
I mean,
here's what's interesting.
Or maybe it will, and God bless.
You.
When I was a kid, I remember reading about like the fall of the Roman Empire and the fall of the Greek Empire, and then I was thinking about America.
No, you read those phrases and you never actually knew what caused it.
Right.
Is that possible? Is it possible?
When he says he read about the fall of the Roman Empire and the Greek Empire, first of all, Greek Empire, at least Byzantine, shouts out to the Turks, 1453, best year of my life. But as far as like he's talking about the Roman Empire, which is like he when he says he read something about it, he means like he watched that white supremacist Stefan Molyneux.
No, he watched Troy. He watched like
no, I was because he used to write. He did like a very famous like fall of the Roman Empire happened because like they were too woke.
Oh yeah.
Or something.
They're like dressed up. That book, The Virtue of Nationalism, who's by like the version who basically says the same things as a lot of these guys in that kind of way, like but dressed up for like think tank folks. Like his argument is basically the same thing, that it's like cultural softness and not at all about like, you know, challenges of accumulation or, you know, how do we like allocate the vast wealth that we have, and, you know, maybe do we free our slaves? I don't know. Like, I mean, it's very interesting. These guys,
they went woke, dude, and they got
that's
broke.
it. They just went woke. There's no history,
and like
there's nothing to be learned.
What's really funny about that also is that they always talk about like wokeness as or moral decay, moral degeneracy. Nationalists love talking about that as though like Romans weren't butt fucking like crazy from the jump. Okay, like they were never not butt fucking. Okay, like anyway, it's always funny to add like the relatively new Christian understanding of homosexuality when discussing you know, wokeness destroying Rome.
Also, it's just like doing the degeneracy card or any of this, it's just non sequiturs.
Possible that this is just one. I mean, we want to think it's fucking permanent, but I bet the people of Rome felt the same way.
Of course they did.
This is how it is. This is how I live every day. This is not going to change.
Right.
And Russians know.
They know.
They know.
Their
know
society's collapsed.
They've been through it.
Our society will go down. Nothing will ever be funnier. America will come apart in one of the funniest ways. All of these people, these grifters, everybody circling the wagons, the Caitlyn Jenners, the Donald Trumps. It'll be funny till you'll die laughing. Literally, you'll die, but you will be laughing. It will be the most absurd and insane thing. It will be out of a fucking dystopian horror movie, and it won't be funnier than America, because we're a crazy country full of crazy people, and everybody's just trying to suck the last few dollars out of this bloated pig corpse of an empire before the end. And I'm no different. Watch my special and subscribe to my pod. What am I going to fucking sit here? What am I going to go preach on a fucking mountain? We got to make a little money
What
here.
am I going to do?
But
Be a
make
decent
no
person?
mistake, I mean, if I'm wrong, and I'd love to be wrong, but if your attitude or your idea is that the population's going to get smarter, healthier, and more adept at problems.
I mean, yeah, he's just like tackling revolutionary optimism by talking about how, I mean, he just has a very nihilistic perspective on things. And I think that justifies him engaging in the same like gratuitous capitalist culture of consumption and seeing everything from the framework of content, which I do too. I do too.
It's also though, it's like I agree with him and like on the premise that like, yeah, like consumption is just like, that's all we got. That is like the experience that people are, primed to give, and whether it's, travel or eating at restaurants. I mean, like there's a reason that we we've remade the world to accommodate so many tourist economies, in spite of the fact that like it's so low paying for, domestic populations. It's just that like, I can't, that consumption thing though, like it's also like, because it's expenditure, because it shapes the way people think and act in like, this destructive and like arresting way, to my mind, it also stands to reason that like, well, then it means it makes it that much more meaningful when we resist it ever so goddamn slightly. And instead of just being like, come for me, like I can't vibe with that.
Look, I like comfort. Okay, I like 37 different brands of Oreos made by the same like 6 multinational corporations, but I think that is an adequate mechanism of keeping people docile and keeping people fat and lazy and happy to a certain degree. I think that method of control, if you believe that there needs to be a mechanism of control, that mechanism of control is significantly more adequate and demonstrably more successful, especially when it's paired up with like imperialism and endless bloodshed and constant military dominance worldwide, than a more authoritarian one that says you can't have nice things. I think you kind of see that with China too. Like China kind of took over that. I feel as though China realized like you got to give people coffee.
Well, some of it is also I think like in their case, you know, like looking at like the scope of the 20th century, like, you know, something that like the Americans now, like we've had like my grandma one of my grandparents didn't grow up with running water. However, that is not the case for almost anybody who has parents in America now. In China, it's literally one generation of uplift from like, you know, like some of the most desperate rural poverty to fucking like, you know, like making like people who like order like, I don't know, the Chinese equivalent of Sweet Green or whatever on their delivery apps and are just as, you know, like degenerate consumers in the capitalist society as we are to a point. And to me, it's sort of like, well, if you view it in perspective, it's like, yeah, Americans like as a settler colonial country that has like never had like a real check on its power as it's grown, like, yeah, like it's going to ultimately have the most fucked up and like outsized like relationship with how we manage, you know, our population's own patterns of consumption. Whereas China, it's like, yeah, in the scope of like the last century, they've had to deal with like, you know, what we never frankly had to deal with. So there's to me a kind of way where it's like the things that he's describing about how it's like, you know, and he was saying earlier about like, you know, how we used to be this country that, you know, fucked up the world, but we made great movies and all that stuff. It's like, well, there's no like, you know, like that wasn't good or an optimal path then either, and it's not worth like being nostalgic for it. I guess there's, you know,
I don't even know. I mean, look, I don't know the entirety of Tim Dillon's perspective. I don't even know if he like says that is a good thing. You know what I mean? Maybe he's just saying like all of that was supposed to amount to like, you know, constantly sitting around on our asses and eating grapes. Like
you said it earlier, the nihilism thing. It's just that it's like, you know, some of it's like it's like a, you know, like I don't think that like I don't think he earnestly believes that it's like tight that everything's going to hell in a handbasket, but it's like,
no, he's joking. I think he's like, I think he's like being a little sarcastic, but who knows?
I'm solving. You're on fucking crack.
Oh, yeah, probably. You're probably right.
Yeah.
Well, what happens next?
I think the irony of like having this conversation though, while talking about like how we have nothing and all we have is like treats, is pretty ironic. But then we are contributing that to that cycle as well.
Well,
like,
no, but like that's if you view like your contribution to it totally in the term of like, am I like only plugged into like, you know, the discourse machine today? Then it's like, you know, like if that's the standard, then like sure, yeah, you're playing in the same muck.
Yeah.
However, it's like if you believe that people can say qualitatively different things and choose to respond to events in that way, then like, you know, I don't think everybody's all equally bad. They're, you know,
no, for sure.
You're just mostly bad, Hassan.
Oh, thank you. What the fuck? Why did I get goddamn, I was waiting on a phone call and it was like a 1 second one. What the fuck is that about?
Oh, that's so annoying.
Why did I get a 1 second call? Come on.
Like, do you think we ever descend into some sort of like CCP controlled world? Like that kind of totalitarian government? Do you think it's possible that through technology and just through people just falling apart, getting losing their...
Dude, it'd be so crazy if like,
if everybody had homes and there was no poverty.
No, it'd be so crazy if like America got like a mechanism of control that like monitors your every movement and and literally like denies you adequate care and rations healthcare on the basis of like how much money you have, and also on top of that like decides if there is like an arbitrary number associated with your wealth and how well you can pay off a debt, for example, that arbitrary number is now going to haunt you for the rest of your life.
Oh, and I'm sorry,
you won't be able to get a house.
You called the cops once, and you're poor. Whoops, we're gonna take your kids away now.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it'd be crazy. If that happened. Yeah, it happens in China, but if it happened here, holy shit, dude. I mean, of course, Joe Rogan will never think about that.
Also, if they started throwing everybody in prison, just kind of like, you know, willy-nilly for small offenses.
Oh, yeah. Like drug possession.
Yeah. Or if there was like a crazy plutocracy that just bought up all this real estate and made sure that nobody else could have any.
Yeah, no, that would be wild. Thank God that's not happening in the United States of America.
Freedom.
Yeah. The freest country on earth, which, you know, freedom ain't free, though. That's why we have to house 25% of the incarcerated population of the fucking planet.
That's not just about neutralizing a proletariat or, you know, making sure that...
Or having a steady flow of slave labor, which is, of course, still protected by the Constitution.
Or, you know, it's also we don't make our neighbor countries do that either with, like, the maquiladoras in Mexico, where everybody just makes poverty wages.
Yeah, no, of course not. These are many things to think about. It's not like that.
No, not at all.
Fucking minds thinking it's the right thing to do.
I think what happens next is we'll just have, you know, these giant oscillating swings between right and left, and then I think, you know, eventually it'll get to a point where large areas in the country are unlivable for a myriad of reasons, perhaps crime or homelessness, climate, whatever. Very, you know, well-off or well-connected people will have these kind of enclaves that are, this is already happening. And then there'll be, you know, a fight to be in one of those two groups. And then eventually a dictator, a strong man, somewhere down the line, some man or woman will come in and go, this system's fucked. I am going to run things. And they will run things in a way, and it probably won't be for the best, but like the system will collapse. But I don't know if we'll see it, but it will collapse. There's no way it doesn't. It will collapse to a degree. And someone will come in and go, yeah, these elections are all fake and it doesn't matter anyway. Why do you fuckers need to vote? Here's a coupon for a chicken sandwich. And people go, I like chicken. And then, you know, people just go, fuck it. They don't care. And then you go, there'll be Netflix and there'll be Domino's and you'll sit in your house and they'll say, well, you can't drive today because of the climate. And people go, yeah, it's Tuesday. Can't get in my car because of climate. And you'll sit there and they'll feed you poison and you'll watch TV. And a few people will riot, but very few, because most people will be pacified by the goodies, which they'll still probably have. And, you know, the leader will come on and tell, like, well, they'll be like, hello, everyone. And you'll go, hey. And it'll be a celebrity. It'll be someone you know. It'll be someone you're very familiar with, and they'll say a couple of things and be like, it's not that bad, is it? And they go, no, it's not that bad. And they'll feed you the propaganda, and you won't remember when you were free, and you won't remember. And most people will be.
But that already has happened, and it's happening, and you're also not free. So you should be able to recognize that, but I don't know.
Also, like, people, by the way, like, I really loathe, like, the description of, like, what happens when, like, people have to stay home or, like, not get in their cars to, like, go out places. It's like, yeah, people are free to draw, read, work out, say hi to their mom. Like, there's a world in which, like, you know, like, life as it happens that does not have to exist around, like, consumption. Like, people do every goddamn day find meaning and, like, you know, like, loveliness in their lives and shit. And it's just like, yeah, like, this is like it's funny pessimism, sure, but it's also just not, like, it's not real. Like, it can't be defended.
Be fine with that, but me and you will be dead. And it won't matter. You know, and we'll have experienced the best of it. We'll remember when you could get in a car without a tracking device. We'll remember when you didn't have a fucking tracking device attached to you at all times. We'll remember when you could say what the fuck you want, alienate people, piss them off, and no one really cared, and it didn't matter because you could wake up the next day and say, sorry, I was drunk, and it wasn't on fucking Twitter. People didn't have a record of what you did and what you said and where you were and who you fucked and everything else. We will remember true freedom. We're one of the last groups of people to actually be free. And we should all thank God for that, because the hellscape that's about to be created is going to be so bad they won't even know how bad it is. It won't even feel like they're in prison, because those offices we talked about, people, they get to like them. Oh, there's creamer today. French vanilla. It's your favorite. It's coming. It's coming, and it's going to be so bad it won't even feel bad. But we'll be like, shit. Remember when you could do all those things you can't do anymore? But, you know, and there'll be a few people that remember it, and then they'll take all those books about that shit and burn the fuck out of them. They'll go, well, those aren't good. Racism, homophobia, it's not burn. And people will forget when you were free, and they will just kind of create a society based on goodies, little rewards, and
it literally feels like he's describing our current, I don't know. It does kind of feel like he's describing our current situation.
Well, that's like part of it is how you know that he's also wrong, is that he's just describing the present. Like, there's a part of it is that it's like also he's just saying that like things are.
I mean, he literally said, "Remember when you like." He's like talking about having a tracker on you at all times, and he literally even put his phone up. Like that's. I mean that's.
Well, and I guess the other part of it is the like. I mean, it's one thing, like, it's part of why, like, you know, if you say that things are, like he says, like, things are going to collapse and we're not going to see it. If you say that collapse is coming, even if you're not going to peg it on a, you know, time frame, like, you got to say what it's going to look like, motherfucker. Otherwise, you're just using, like, words. You're using image.
I guess, like, the contradictions ramped up to its maximum capacity, right? Like, that's it. You're just describing extra capitalism.
Well, and then it's like, okay, if you want to talk about like contradictions mounting, then it's like, you know, there's like, I guess part of it to me is, you know, sort of saying like, well, things are going to happen that we didn't anticipate COVID. And that's part of what's triggered the moment that we're now in with inflation, because it turned out that like having this like weird stop and start with the whole global supply chain threw everything out of whack at a minimum. Like there's a very, I guess, like, you know, we don't know, like these shocks can be understood, and it's not just some like 100-year turning that you have to talk about. Like that's how Steve Bannon talks about politics.
Yeah. I was thinking about it, but it's like if the welfare state has extended or has been the lifeline or a band-aid rather to continue the capitalist organization of the economy at a global scale, especially in the Western world, that the irony now of like the bourgeois state eating itself and defeating its final mechanism of control that allows this entire thing to work, or at least create the presence that it's still working, and avoid inevitable collapses is ironic. You know what I mean? Because it's like it's the one thing that it's like holding this together, and it's not like it's delicate. It's not holding it very well, but at least like that is literally one of the reasons why we're not seeing, you don't see like a peasants' revolution in America. Part of the reason is because like food prices have maintained stability, like
exactly. That's like and you know when people say like, all right, then well, what does collapse look like? What's scary? And it's like, well, here's scary: energy prices in Europe this winter. That's like there are things that you can talk about that are specific, that come from like looking at a newspaper and stuff, and that don't come from like doing the thing that he is criticizing, but is in reality just doing, which is like, you know, like, oh, everybody's just going to be doing the little machines, little games, little Candy Crush, etc.
Yeah. The guy's grill pilling Joe Rogan's audience is basically repeating Matt Christman thought, except with some millennial nostalgia for the 90s mixed in.
Addiction to celebrity, where our leaders will all be celebrities who will tell you on closed circuit television how good things are going. And you'll go, good, thanks. That's what's going to happen.
That was one of the best rants I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah. Well,
Tim Dillon talks about these things more explicitly in his podcast. I think he's dumbing it down for Rogan, but I don't know why.
I think I know why.
I mean, yeah, no. If there is like some genuine criticism of the current state of affairs underneath his examination of the way things are and what he thinks the future will look like, I doubt that it's rooted within like dialectical materialism. I think it's more so just like, it's what you know, when it's all you know. You're guided by, you're motivated and guided by the things you've learned. And it's pretty much impossible to fucking learn that unless you seek it out on your own. So it's going to be, everything is going to be viewed from the framework of like all the contradictions, everything that you experience is going to be seen through the lens of like what you do know, or that's the reason why everything is content. Like everything is analyzed through the framework of consumption. Because that's all we know. We don't have any, we're not producing, we're consuming. So that's the reason why a lot of the podcast guys will always revolve every fucking structural critique or analysis around cancel culture.
Because if you are and what you like, it's consumption as expenditure. Like it's like they like consumption as like making it part of your identity, making it define who you are, identifying that how other people consume is who they are and how they are, and just like, embracing the void.